Howdy, howdy, Zach Scott here, and I'm going to be doing something a little different tonight. I'm actually going to be taking apart a scene created by another Source Filmmaker user and kind of doing some shot-by-shot camera work and composition tutoring, or critique, I guess you could call it. So tonight we're going to be looking at a film called Boulder Heavy by Walkerism, which is an awesomely animated little film. I don't have the full music here, otherwise I'd just play it for you, but it's a great little film about this Heavy and the King Man, and he's trying to make the Heavy throw the rock, and it's all animated beautifully, but I think his camera work could use a little bit of touch-up. So I've gotten Walkerism's permission, and I'm just going to go into the file, and I'm going to try and show you guys how to reframe these shots without actually completely changing the shot. I'm just going to be nudging the camera a little bit here and tweaking it there to just kind of show you what to look for to improve your composition and framing in your scenes. So we can just go right ahead and jump right in and start with this first shot here with this demo man walking in. Now, right off the bat, God, the animation in this is awesome. Right off the bat, I'll notice a couple of things here. So if you look at the start of the shot, where we start, the Heavy is not necessarily prominent in the frame here. We're looking at this and we have all of this empty space that we're not using. We have okay thirds lines, but we're still looking at a lot of empty space, and as the shot progresses, we continue to have quite a bit of empty space around here. You'll notice that the Heavy is pretty much our most interesting character here, and he's getting cut off a little bit. And I'll take a second here to say, I'm sorry, Walkerism, if I start to get harsh here. I'm just kind of going to be going through this, but I'll try to explain everything I say here. So first off, the Heavy is getting cut off, and he's not really super prominent in the frame. We're pretty dead center on the demo man as well, but so let's just play through here. So it looks like we have it looks like the reason we have that space here in the shot is because this ball kind of goes through, but I don't necessarily think we need to be leaving that empty space there for the entirety of the shot. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to grab my camera, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back a tiny bit, and I'm going to tighten the shot up, which will just have the effect of making our characters larger in the frame. So you'll see here we already have, the Heavy is now much clearer to see if we compare that to where we were. So we can just make him bigger, and doing the same for the demo man here. And I'm just going to kind of get these guys right on the thirds line. So if you remember from my other tutorial, you're going to want to try and frame things as much as you can along the thirds lines as possible. So now you'll see here the Heavy is right along one of our thirds lines, the demo man is right along the other, and if we go down a little bit, we even start to get the action down here along our lower third. So as we play this, and actually I'm going to reframe that just a bit for where the camera ends up. So now we have the Heavy here. Yeah. And so if we just were to take that and maybe let's just add a little bit of tweaking here. Whoops. I'm just going to add a little bit of a delay in there. And actually, we can even get a little bit of timing in here too, so we get the demo man. Yeah. So you can see how I've kept pretty much the same shot, but with a little bit of reframing, we get a nice comedic beat in there, and we kind of get a little bit of action and reframing as well. So he pokes the Heavy, he hits the ball off, which knocks the things over, and then he looks back, and the Heavy's got the ball again. And we just kind of reinforce that joke that's already there, but we can kind of just tell it better with camera work. So going back to the beginning here, he's doing a weird reframe where he's panning away from the Heavy in, but I think we would be better served if we started with the Heavy more centered, because at the end of the day, this is all about the heavy. So we just get him in here, and yeah. So we start on the heavy, and he comes in and walks in. Yeah. I'm finding it hard to talk and do camera work at the same time here, so you'll have to excuse my stutteriness. So yeah, going on here, I think we could probably do stuff with the background more, but I'm just going to move on to the next shot. So again, less negative space and more usage of the thirds. Coming on here, heavy points over there. This shot is pretty much perfect as is. Like it's fine. It's awesome. Right on the thirds lines. The heavy is taking up half the shot, but it's okay the way it's staged. So I think that's good. We have the rock here. It's hard to tell that you're looking at the boulder necessarily, because this is a very literal shot. So if I grab the camera 1, let's see. Yeah, so there's no characters here, so I can kind of. All I would do here is just kind of lift it up and try and make that boulder a little more prominent, because at the time I didn't necessarily know what we were looking at. Having the beer bottles as a good reference point is nice, but it would be better if we had the heavy to work with as an over the shoulder. But since he's not there, I'm not going to worry too much about this shot, but I will worry about this shot. So the information, as I understood it, that we were trying to get across is the demo man is saying, "Hey, see that rock? You gotta go smack that rock." So, and the heavy's just like, "Oh shit!" But in this shot, it's not very clear at all what we're necessarily looking at, which is kind of amplified by the fact that this is a very static shot. So we can highlight this rock more, even just starting out in the exact same spot that we are, but just adding a little bit of camera movement to kind of push in on the rock to emphasize that it's there. So as you see here, not quite that harsh. I'm just going to fiddle with the handles. You see here, we just have a slight push in, but now, even though it's basically the same shot, you can tell that we're looking at the rock, or we're supposed to be looking at the rock. Whereas before, when we were just looking at this shot, you could be, I'm not sure where you could be looking. Maybe you're looking for the door, maybe you're looking over here. I'm not sure by what the camera was telling me, but now with just a little bit of motion, we can just hammer that point home. We can go more extreme, however, and really highlight the rock with a nice glory shot or something. So we can get in here, tighten it up, and focus on the rock, something like this, where it's pretty straightforward in the frame. Actually put a little bit of movement on that as well. So, whoops, that's in a wall. There we go. So, whoops, why is that looking down? There we go. So we can just kind of stretch that out and give the rock a little bit more of a, it's just more prominent in the shot. You could even extend this further by, as the heavy walks out, you could have this shot bridge into the heavy's feet coming into frame. Actually, I could probably try that. You know, I'm going to try that. So let's just see how I can do that. So let's see where that heavy takes us first step. Here we go. Awesome. So I'm going to just cut that and blade that shot. And I'm going to go into this shot here. I'm going to look at where the heavy takes us first couple of steps. Yep. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and get that previous shot, but yeah, with the heavy walking in. So grab this, grab that, and as we turn around here, I'm going to widen this up, go a little bit lower, and flatten it. So we have a similar shot showing off the rock, but now we have the heavy kind of walking in, and that makes this edit really, really clean. So the information is super clear that we're supposed to be looking at the rock, and the heavy is now approaching it. So again, you can see how I just kind of flipped that around. I didn't even add any more animation. I just duplicated the animation there, and now we have a really smooth edit here as well. This shot is a bit, I think it starts out in a good spot, but the way that it pans could be a little better. Let's see here. Whoops. Let's go here. Let's grab camera 2, and I'm just going to kind of reframe a little bit. Actually, I'm probably going to try and just reframe a lot. Play ahead. Here we go. So I'm kind of keeping the rock very large here in the frame, but we can still see the heavy clearly approaching. And I think it's good to have the rock large in this shot because it is also quite large in the next shot. In fact, that's the whole point of the next shot, is to kind of show how big it is, because it's the heavy looking up and seeing the height of it all. So if I just go like that, skip over, sorry. Yeah, just a little bit less of that. Cool, so we can see the heavy walking up. This could be better, but I'm just kind of re-emphasizing the thirds lines here, the spots as well. And here I've got the rock taking up more than half of the frame, just to emphasize again how large it is. Yeah, you'll have to excuse me a little bit. Most of this stuff is instinctive second knowledge, so it's a little bit awkward for me to explain it outright. But here we go. Continuing on, we have the rock, and it looks good. We're just trying to show off how big it is. So, as that's the main idea, we can probably emphasize it a little bit more by showing the heavy smaller in the frame. So I'm just widening the FOV for that. Though we have a few things in the area that don't necessarily look super great, so we can do the reverse as well and kind of just zoom in like it was before. So this shot I'm okay with. I mean, we can leave it how it was. I'll just put it like that for now. Moving forward, this shot I think could use a lot of work. So we have the heavy here. He's looking at the rock, which is fine. We understand that. And then he looks back. So two main problems here is, first off, again, it's negative space. So negative space is taking up more of the frame than I would like. We're not able to see as much of the heavy as the viewer would necessarily want. Also, headroom. Right now, there is a ton of empty space above the heavy himself, so I would just want to tighten that up as well. So if we just grab the camera here, I'm going to push down. Actually, I'm going to pull out and zoom in a little bit to clear up the headspace. And then to deal with the negative space, instead of having the heavy about this far over, I'm going to push him in like that. And actually, dealing with the second half of the shot when he looks back, to facilitate that, I'm actually going to have the heavy push more on this side as well, because it's more about him looking forward at the rock, and then he looks back at the demo man, and then does the majority of his acting. So you could actually do some movement here too, so I can smooth this out a bit more by doing that, and then kind of pivoting around him. Maybe not quite so fast, but yeah. Linear. Awesome. So it's pretty close to where it was before. I'm not changing it dramatically. I'm just tightening up some of the framing and spacing. So there we go. We have the demo man. This is a cool shot. I'm great with it. It's awesome. So I'm just going to move on. And here we have back to this shot from before. We already fixed it before, so I'm not going to deal with it again. Here we have the heavy approaching the rock, and then the really, really awesome boulder lifting scene. So you'll notice here that when he starts lifting the boulder, there is a line jump. So you see we're always on, up until this point in the movie, we're almost always on this side of the heavy, but then on this side we jump to the other. We jump the line pretty much. I'm not going to worry about that too much because I prefer the new line a lot more because we have that sky in the background. But back to this shot, I'm going to tweak it to get the heavy a little more prominent as well, because again, we have a lot of negative space. In this case, it's showing how far the rock has to go, but if we want to show how far the rock has to go, we can emphasize that a bit more while still keeping the very interesting parts of our character. So here, we just moved from this point to this point. And now we're getting a good bit more information. So we have a nice element along our thirds lines here with the silhouette of the horizon plus the top of the rock plus the rocks over here. We have we still have a bit of negative space here, but now it's more of a visual path that the rock is going to take up to this hole in the fence. So it's a very subtle thing, but it's a bit more leading to the viewer as it goes. The heavy, I like him here. We can see him kind of walk up to this big rock, see how he's getting in there. We flip the line. So I mentioned there's a line jump here, and I like the new line of action, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just cross the line of action. So I'm going to start this shot, and this is a very long shot, so it's generally a good idea to spice up your longer shots with more dramatic camera animations, so that you can move through a series of shots in a single shot. So instead of starting on that side, I'm going to start almost dead center for exaggerated effect. Maybe get up above this grass a little bit, and I'm going to pull that out, and then I'm going to end somewhere like somewhere like that, I think. I'd tweak it a little bit more, but let's see here. So we have the heavy kind of comes in, and we get a nice view of the rock, and we get a really interesting angle here as he goes. I'm going to kind of come in. I'm gonna add a bit more rotation to the camera, and I'm gonna be pushing the heavy onto this thirds line as I go. So you'll see here he's still in frame, but the rock is still big. Gonna just recenter for detail. I'm gonna punch up this cool little moment here where he gets under the rock and just kind of drop down, and kind of slowly build back up as he pushes the rock up. So kind of just mirroring the animation he's got here. So I think there's another drop here. Yeah, so I'm gonna grab this. Yeah. I really like that. So I think the one thing I would add here is I want to see that rock tip over right at the end. So I might add one more cut here coming up, or I might just try and pull out. Here we go. Yeah, let's see if I can show that whole rock tipping over. Oops. Yeah, so let's see what I got here. Yeah, I like that shot too. A nice thing to note is one way to tell you're doing good camera work is if you can look at a single shot in your video and say, hey, that's good enough to put on a poster. Like, I think this frame right here, this is good enough to put on a poster if you just tweaked up the lighting. It tells exactly the story you want to tell. This heavy is just moving this rock out of the way, and it's awesome. The posing is great. Everything's dynamic. The visual elements are very interesting. The heavy's usually pretty big, but here he's pretty small, and this rock is just about to crush him, and we kind of pull out. So, yeah, all right, I'm liking that. I really like this shot. I think the animation he did is amazing, and so I just think he could have done a little bit more to complement it. So, you see here we kind of have a nice build-up again, and we have the first drop, and then we have the second drop, and then the big push. Oh yeah, and we emphasize it even more by pushing the camera out. So yeah, I like that. That's cool. So I'm just going to move on to the next couple shots. I'm going to pause for a second because I'm thirsty. So continuing on, we cut back out to this shot, which comes after the previous shot. I believe the information here is intending to show that the heavy hasn't been able to move this rock very much at all. So let's just see what we can do to emphasize that. And the best way to do it is to cut back to the shot like he did. So it's definitely the correct shot selection. I just think it's could be framed slightly better as well here. So I'm just going to switch that over to the previous scene. So camera 6. Looking between these two, I don't know if it does tell that story. Actually, now that I've changed it. Sorry, I'm just looking at the animation. It's great. So let's see here. What can I do? To tell how very little he's got done and how much left he has to go. I'm not sure about this shot. I'll probably skip it for now. I would obviously come back to it if I were making my film, if this were my film, but I'm just gonna move on for the sake of time because I gotta sit for a minute to figure out exactly what I would want to do there. Here, this is great. This tells the right story, though I want to exaggerate it more. Right now, the idea is that the heavy goes over the edge and then rolls down the hill. The rock, rather. This guy's bugging me. Yeah, so the rock goes up over the hill and rolls down the edge. So right now I'm just going to exaggerate it. We know that an object in a very high place will obviously roll down. So let's put this rock in a really high place. I think we can push it up to there, just to check here. Yep, so I think a nice, some variation on a flat angle would be great to show the slope as well. Probably, yeah, I'll go with this. It's pretty simplistic. We could definitely find a better framing, but we have good elements here. We have the, ooh, actually, wonder what I can do with these mountains. No, I'll leave it for now. We have good elements here. The rock is in a nice thirds section. Yeah, something about this is weirding me out. Maybe something like that instead. Yeah, I'm just going to say something like this, which is pretty close to where we started. This is another shot that I'd probably want to sit down for a longer time and evaluate. This, I think, is a good shot, but we can exaggerate it more. So the heavy is pushing so hard that the rock falls and just gets away from him. So I'm just going to kind of play around with the ideas there. So I want to put the camera somewhere closer so that we can see the rock in frame, and then just it totally drops out. So yeah, let's see here. Actually, yep, so I'm gonna start up a little closer up here too, and I'm gonna put some movement on this as well to kind of push into the rock going over the edge. So let's see here. Yep, so I'm going to start up on this heavy. And when he drops, I'm going to drop the camera. And then I'm going to kind of bounce back up to show the top of the rock, and it kind of rolls out. Yeah, so we have a slightly more dynamic shot, and it's all about the rock going over the cliff and out of sight. And so on this next shot, I'm probably going to tweak it a little bit more. I think this is some pretty funny framing already with the doorway behind the heavy, but let's see what I can do. So the last point we just made was the rock went over the hill. So we want the heavy to be peeking over that hill. That's kind of what we're at here, but I want to get some more of the hill in the shot and maybe get the heavy looking like he's looking a little more like he's looking down. So I'm just going to tweak the heavy's positioning a little bit as well here. So I think his posing's great, so I'm just going to kind of scoot him up and over and maybe tilt him a little bit. He's got a bunch of grass in his face. That might be why he didn't shoot it the way this way. Shoot it that yeah, bleh, yeah. So getting around this grass. Yeah. So pretend we had a way to get rid of this grass. I would probably try to shoot it something like this. So just ignore the grass there so that we have some nice visual elements. We show the heavy more looking over the hill. He's more looking down, and if you watch his eye lines, his direction is down and out of the frame, almost towards the corner, which is similar to where we last saw the rock. So the rock moves down into the corner, and the heavy looks down at the corner where the rock was last seen, pretty much. Yeah, so we got that. The rock rolling away from the heavy, again, we can tweak this. So let's just kind of see if we can show the visual path of the rock at all. Whoops, I gotta select the correct shot. The visual path. So the rock starts right here, almost close to the center, and then moves off to the right, or left, sorry, rather. It looks like he tried off several cameras. I'm going to see if see what else he was shooting. Okay, camera one. Whoops. No. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. All right. So the rock. This is a pretty wide camera. I'm going to show more of the heavy in this shot and show the rock rolling down and away. So let's see here. This is a bit tricky because of the angles. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Unless we do. I want to emphasize that the rock is moving down, but I also want to emphasize that the rock is moving away from the heavy. So actually, the way this was originally did some of those pretty decently. Yeah, let's see here. I guess I'll just try to keep it close to how it was. So I'm just going to go with something very similar to the same shot, but with the heavy in the frame, so we have that point of reference. So again, we have the rock starting, maybe, yeah, this is a bit wide, this camera. So I'm gonna have it like that. And it goes down and out. I'd probably tweak that a bit more as well, if this were my shot, or my film, but I'm gonna move on. This one, similar. I need to know where the rock is going and that the rock is approaching us. So, yeah, this camera is outside of the level. So I'm going to tighten it up a bit, and I'm going to get a bit more out of the way so that we can see the rock moving this way. And I'm going to do a slight follow on the rock as well. So I'm going to start out up here, aiming at the rock pretty centered, and I'm going to end with the rock right about there. So, and then I'm just going to bridge that cut a little bit by having the rock kind of roll into this next shot. And this next shot I think is pretty great. I would just I'd pull back a little bit because you see the characters are being cut off by the edges of the screen. And I don't see a good reason to do that, so I'm going to pull... Oh, there's a wall here! I'm going to pull back, and I'm just going to cut that wall out by using the element viewer. So, show an element viewer camera Z near. So I'm just going to push the near plane out by, I don't know, 50? Nope. 150? Nope, that's too much. I'm cutting their arms off. 100. 70. Let's try 85. There we go. And so I'm just going to do that, tighten it up. And so here we have pretty much the same shot, except now we can nicely see our characters. And I'm just going to add that slight kind of pull in so the rock lands there. And I'm just going to start it off like that. So. And actually, I'm going to limit that to only movement in one axis. Yep. And you could go further and put like maybe a camera shake or something when the rock hits the ground and all that. That's cool. What is this? What are these arrows? All right. So I think that's pretty close to what it was, but just tightened up a little bit for visual clarity. The rock is pretty clear in this shot. It's hard to miss. The fact that it's framed by this door is really great. It's like the action with the rock is happening in its own little window within the frame. So we have the action out here, and then within a little window we have the rock. So that's nice. With this scout, I love this animation, and the shot's pretty cool. I'm going to maybe emphasize the size of the characters a little bit more. I don't have a super great reason for this, but I'm just going to do it anyway. But yeah, so I'm just pulling out and widening up the shot a little bit. Scout is still right on a thirds line, pretty bog standard stuff, and the heavy is right there. Actually, I could probably push the heavy here too. So now the heavy is also taking up more of the frame, so he's more prominent, and the scout's pretty small. It's kind of emphasizing what I think is part of the joke here, which is, you know, the scout is just this little guy, but he's still controlling this blue heavy pretty nicely. So it's pretty similar, just a little bit clearer. This shot is pretty awesome. The fact that the ball's right here in the shot is a great visual reference point. So I'm just going to take and again kind of push this just the slightest bit over, but I think that's great. And I love this face. Oh my god, this face is so great. That's just beautiful. And then this last shot I believe is for the credits, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But yeah, so just to recap, I'll just play through that whole thing again. So Heavy's more in frame here, and as he walks in, instead of opening the space up from the start, we're just going to use the space with a quick little whip pan. So he hits that and knocks it out, and then we get the joke when we come back. We see the rock. Whoops, ignore this shot because this is where I tweaked things. We see the rock, and we see the Heavy come up to it. The rock is really big here, and the rock is still pretty big. This shot's fine. Yep. So the Heavy comes up, and we can kind of get an idea of where the rock's supposed to go. We got a nice long movement. The Heavy is pushing for quite a while, and we got the dip, and we got the dip, and we got the rock going over, and that's awesome. So we got this shot. We have the rock tipping from a high place and getting away from the Heavy. Heavy's looking down more. Stomps into place. Small scout. And this face is great. And so that's kind of what I'll say for now. It's just a quick kind of run through. I think most of the cameras are still pretty much where they were at the start. Hopefully you got a kind of a bit of a look into what I look for when I'm framing things. Always remember to use your thirds lines as much as possible, if you can. Keep an eye on your angles. Keep an eye on your characters getting cut off by the edges of the frame. Keep an eye on your head space, so there isn't too much space above your character's head. Generally, you don't want the character to be... Generally, you don't want the space above your character to take up close to the same space as what your character takes up, unless you're in a really exaggerated shot like this where you want to emphasize, for example, that the heavy is very small, or things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Man, my brain is fried right now. Anyway, I hope you learned something. Take it easy. Good night.